something happened yesterday that people in our world love. There was some talk about the Boston Celtics transaction. You recall the Boston Celtics are being sold to a group led by Bill Chisholm. Bill Chisholm, every time I read the name, it reminds me of Field of Dreams. And Coco will tell me whether I'm right or wrong. I believe one of the characters in Field of Dreams was last name Chisholm. I have no idea why that's in my head, and it may be wrong, but I don't think it is. But Bill Chisholm is basically buying the Celtics in a modernized two-step process. He's buying it at one valuation, a percentage of the team, letting Wick, the current governor of the Celtics, stay in something that the NBA tried not to do again. Then in a couple of years, Wick will go away, Chisholm will be the governor, and by the way, the last payment will value the team even higher. But here's the thing about the rules in the NBA. The governor of the team, the control person of the team, is an individual, and the individual has to have the largest stake of the team. No one can put in more money than that individual. When you have valuations of $7 billion for a team, you understand why everyone's going out and trying to get private equity funding as part of the acquisition deal. And of course, it came out that Sixth Street Partners was going to put $1 billion into the deal. And everyone said, that sounds perfect. Until you realize that Bill Chisholm himself was not going to put in $1 billion. That means that Sixth Street would actually hold a higher percentage of the partnership than the control person, and that doesn't work. That violates the NBA rule. So what do? Either you go out and get more investors to come into your group so you don't need the full $1 billion from private equity, or you yourself put in more money so that you've put in more than what the private equity firm has decided to put in. I promise you, Bill Chisholm is not writing a check for $1 billion. Keep in mind that the current owners of the Celtics are not going to receive the 6.3 or the 7.3 billion. That's the enterprise value. You have to take the debt away, and that's called the equity value, and that's the amount of money that gets given to the seller of a team. Would the NBA make an exception and allow a private equity firm to hold a larger percentage of the team than the governor of that team? Would they allow the possibility of a rule change? What do you think that Adam Silver has in mind with this Celtics transaction? What he has in mind is that you're not focused on the $1.5 billion deal that the Timberwolves did, that you are not focused on the $1.7 billion deal the Mavericks did, that you're focused on the rising tide of franchise valuations, and that there is a new record, and that record belongs not to an NFL team, regardless of what Forbes says teams are worth, but it belongs to an NBA team. A fully consummated transaction that puts a value on the team higher than the Commanders and Josh Harris's purchase of said team. If that means that Adam Silver has to bend a rule or amend a rule, let's say that the private equity firm owns 18% of the team and Bill Chisholm is only going to own 15% of the team. Think the NBA will make an exception? What if it's the private equity firm owning 25% and the individual owning 5%? Who's the governor? Would the NBA make an exception for that? My point is, when the NBA makes an exception to any time anyone makes an exception to a rule, you're making a mistake. The reason why I am so disciplined and strict about granting exceptions in a clubhouse, in a company, is that people misunderstand. He got an exception. Why can't I? He got that. Why can't she? And you end up spending a lion's share of your time, your expiring time, trying to keep track of who got what. Do you know what exceptions are in the business world? They're the lazy man's way out. because you don't have to have a tough conversation. You don't have to figure out a workaround. You just say, I get it. We'll make an exception this time. I ask you, please, as you go about your day today, when you are either at home or at work, and you hear someone talk about an exception, because everyone talks about exceptions every day, see if you can't draw the line exactly to, wow, that seems lazy. The NBA is not lazy. So, what would be another factor in an exception to this rule? Another factor is keeping the franchise valuations growing. So, the NBA has an interesting decision to make. Do they actually change the rule in advance so that they don't have to make an exception for what's happening with the Celtics so that sort of transaction can go through? Or do you wait for the Celtics transaction to go through, wait for Chisholm to go before the league and the board of governors, and then say, we'll grant you this, but only if you have a plan to lower the private equity's investment in your team? We're not going to give you an exception to the rule. We'll give you time and runway to be in compliance of the rule. That's the second best thing you can do. This Celtics transaction is going to be interesting.